Hello, writers. Come write with me. My name is Mykela Greenwood. I create worlds for mind adventures. Welcome to my channel. I'm so excited to have you here, to have you join me on my channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell so you can go on this journey with me. Today, we're going to discuss some terms or ideas, and then we will add to a down soldier. The first word that we are looking at today is idyllic. Idyllic means especially of a time or place that is extremely happy, peaceful, or picturesque. This has to do with your setting. Some synonyms are perfect, ideal, idealized, wonderful, blissful, halcyon, happy, heavenly, paradisial, utopian, rustic, or unspoiled. An antonym is hellish. In our stories, we set up the setting, usually right away. And the setting is the time period as well as countryside versus city. It could be a rundown area. It could be an idyllic setting. In Season 1, Episode 19, we had a writing prompt to describe a peaceful scene. So you're welcome to go back and review that episode. But idyllic could be a memory also. Maybe your character goes back to his or her childhood home and has idyllic memories flood through him or her. And then he or she looks around at the scene and the home is now in a rundown state. Flashbacks can be an important tool in your stories. So you would have to set up both times you have to set them up. Of course, things need to be interrelated. So maybe in the memory that, maybe something in the memory that is important rises to the surface like a clue or a piece to a puzzle. And that memory helps the person solve whatever issue. They kind of used that in Men in Black. I think it was the second one. Wasn't an idyllic thing necessarily, but the one guy was trying to remember things, and he was going through and finding clues so that he could remember. But you could have those clues rise to your memory without the picture or without the clues that you'd left behind. It could be something that as a child you wouldn't have put together in your memory, and then later on you put it together. Whereas in Men in Black 2, he left those clues for himself on purpose. So that doesn't have to do with idyllic, but it just connects. You can use things in different ways. That where he left the clues can have us think that when we are remembering the idyllic setting of a childhood, that we could remember a clue or something that we hadn't thought of before or something to that effect. In Star Trek, The Next Generation, they could program the holograph deck to an idyllic scene and go have a picnic, flying deep in space, and they just finished the battle with whosoever, and then all of a sudden they can go have a picnic. Maybe your characters are climbing a mountainside in the rain, but when they get to the top, the sun breaks through and they see the beautiful meadow that's filled with sweet-smelling flowers down below. Is very welcoming, especially after the hard climb. That would be idyllic. And you should describe the scene and the peace that fills your characters. It's not to say you need to describe every blade of grass, but just enough to get the emotion across to your readers. How they've taken a break. They've made the hard climb. They made it up. They feel successful. They're taking a break. They're looking at the beautiful scene. Hope fills their body, washes through them. whatever. So you want to describe it in a way so that the people get that it's idyllic, and in contrast to what they just went through is a good way to describe things. Leave a comment on a book, show, or movie that has an idyllic scene or two. Our next term is crucible. Crucible means a ceramic or metal container in which one can melt metals or other substances, or one can subject them to very high temperatures. A second definition or meaning is a situation of severe trial, or in which different elements interact, leading to the creation of something new, or a severe test. A third definition is a place or situation in which concentrated forces interact to cause or influence change or development. Well, the first definition sounds like a vessel for magic potions to me, but I'm sure many writers can use it for metals or other things, chemistry experiments, or if you have drugs going on, drug cartels can mix up their drugs and fire them up in these crucibles or what have you, or whatever you need to mix in these things. I don't deal with metals too much. Sometimes I do. I have blacksmiths, but I don't deal with chemicals. I don't deal with drugs in my stories, at least not yet. But I don't know what you're writing about. Anything that you need to have a very high temperature or very high heat, you can use a crucible, and you could just describe the crucible in amazing ways, or it could be plain and simple. It's up to you. Now, the next two definitions of a crucible sound like the growth of the protagonist. So remember, we said the protagonist has a trial and should grow into the hero your story needs. Most protagonists are not Superman. Although Superman had a few trials himself, none or not many of your characters should be totally the same at the end of the story as they start out in the beginning. They need to learn and grow as they continue. They need to make choices throughout all of the interrelated events. The severe test could very well be your climax, and the severe test could be a test of strength or a test of character. What does your character struggle with? Remember, most readers don't want a perfect hero. They want some aspects that are relatable to themselves. And they don't want to know the end either. I mean, we kind of know the end because in the West it always turns out good, but we don't know if the hero is going to get hurt or something like that. So if the hero never gets hurt and never has to struggle, he's not relatable to your people. So most readers don't want a perfect hero or a perfect situation. They want to see some struggle and some growth. So because they want some aspects that are relatable to themselves. So when they have relatable aspects to themselves, they can get into the emotional connection with the hero. But if the hero's just so good, they're so strong, they're so untouchable, then you can't really relate emotionally to that. At the same time, your readers want heroes that are strong enough to pass the test so that they can kind of look up to the hero. Leave a comment on the crucible of your favorite hero or protagonist, or if you have a crucible going on in your life. Like I went through a divorce. That was very much a crucible. I was in therapy at the time, and my therapist had said, Mykela, we've talked about just one day at a time. Just look at one day at a time. But right now, with your stress level, you probably just need to look at 1 hour at a time. So that helped me to, compartmentalize everything and just to look just 1 hour is what I could focus on to make it through that struggle. So leave comments on your own crucibles if you have them, or something in a show or movie or book where somebody went through a test to test their strength, tell about their crucible. Now let's turn to your stories with a down soldier. First, remember that all works shared on the channel are copyright protected, so there is no worry. Send in your writings to writewithmykela@gmail.com. I look forward to reading your stories on the channel. Excuse me. We've written on this 14 times. We started this story in season 3.1, episode 11. I will list the rest of the episodes and the details below. Now, if you remember back, the first writing prompt was to imagine a soldier that came to after a big battle, and then we went from there. The soldier could have awoken on the battlefield. The soldier could have woken in the hospital, or any place that he could have come to. He or she could have come to, and then we went from there. We do not have a shared plot for this, but I hope you're having fun. I hope you have an intriguing protagonist and an active goal or problem, and you have stakes of some kind, plus a ticking clock. And all of that is interrelated and building to your climax. These are the elements to a good story, along with some good editing. Your first draft is not your final draft. So pause the video, write a page or two, or at least a paragraph. A lot of writers aim for 500 words a day, so see if you can use this writing prompt to meet your own personal writing goal. Come back, and I'll read what I wrote. Welcome back, writers. Now let me read what I wrote. Once again, Vic and Thace pointed out the way they should go. Kamek realized that Moss was mumbling under his breath and gripping his fist. He wasn't sure if he should just let Moss sort things out on his own or not, but he decided to try to talk to him as they walked along. Moss looked around and saw Sartla on the wagon petting the rabbit, so he told Kamek in hushed tones that he'd better not learn that those lizard people dug up his wife's body and did more harm. Kamek could tell that Moss was very angry, so he said calmly, "Why do you think they would dig up the dead?" "Dark magic. With dark magic you can raise the dead. There's a term, necro something." "Necromancy?" asked Kamek. "Yes, I think so. But the dead, once raised, don't know what they are doing," stated Moss. "If I saw," he glanced over to the wagon and Sartla, then he lowered his voice even more. "If I saw my wife, I would think the body I buried was a nightmare. I would want to believe she somehow lived." He motioned to the wagon. "And Sartla?" Kamek hadn't thought about that. And he hadn't read anything about it either, but he wasn't reading a book about dark magic. Then he thought of the battlefield. He once again saw all the dead bodies, including dead bodies of the drummers. Then in his mind's eye, he saw the bright light of the descending sun. They normally retreated when the sun sank below the horizon, but this time they had not. The moon had been full. Stars twinkled in the sky. He started seeing the battle, as if in slow motion. Kamek didn't know he stopped, but Moss stopped. Moss stood beside him. Kamek saw the lizard people pour onto the battlefield from the east and from the darkness. He saw them just slashing people with their claws, and no one knew how to defend against them. The drummers played their drums chaotically and not in rhythm with their soldier or their soldier's opponent. And then the lizard people ran on to the west. Now Kamek realized that the lizard people had probably hit their village before arriving at the battlefield. Moss gripped Kamek's arm to move him along, and Kamek jumped slightly. Kamek realized he had stopped. He looked at Moss. "Sorry, I was just remembering our last battle." "I don't want to remember that," stated Moss. The two men jogged to catch up. After an hour or so, Jules and Kipley were both saying, "Wait!" And they stood up in the wagon and pointed to the walls, but they weren't pointing to the same spot. Burdock glanced behind himself and then pulled the wagon closer to the wall on the one side. He would move it closer to the other side after they read the wall. Kamek climbed up in the wagon and used the glass to read the wall. It was more of the unusual prose they had read before. Vic and Thace wrote down everything, and all three children were watching her. Burdock moved the wagon, and Kamek read the other wall. They were not sure if there was an order to the words or not, but at least they had them. Kamek praised Kipley and Jules for seeing the writing and pointing it out. Kipley asked, "Miss V, can you teach me to write the letters and the words?" "Me," started Jules, but he stopped short. "I certainly can teach all the children how to read and write," replied Vic and Thace. She glanced at Lillian. "Actually, I can teach anyone to read and write." Lillian placed her hands over her heart as she gushed with thanks. "Oh, really? Oh, thank you, miss. I would love to learn." In the tunnels, they didn't know if it was night or day, and they were scared to stay too long in one place. They switched out one horse, and the unicorn thought he could also help pull the wagon, so they switched out the second horse as well. They continued. Kamek didn't know how long they had gone. He guessed it was 3 or 4 hours, but he was tired and getting hungry and felt everyone else was probably feeling the same. Once again, the cavern opened up, and it looked like a meadow. The torches that never went out were higher up, and the ceiling rose up in a dome shape. Sartla rose up with the rabbit in her arms. She said, "That's what I saw in the fountain." Kamek smiled a little. It was nice to be with the children. There were berry bushes dotted throughout. All the adults marveled at how berries could grow in these tunnels. But then Kamek thought of the vine that tried to tie him up. They stopped the wagon, and Burdock found them a picnic blanket. They even let the goat and chicken down. They had several crates with stores for themselves, and Burdock got those down as well and made an enclosure for the animals. The goat was eating the tall grasses, and the chicken went to scratching. Kamek saw the horses also nibbling on the grass. He felt they needed to find some water soon. Nobody said anything when Sartla let the rabbit down, and it started hopping through the grasses. Sartla followed behind. Kipley went to his dad. "Dad, can I try to read the book you're reading? Miss V showed us a lot as we rode." Kamek pulled the book out and handed it to his son. He knew he needed to continue reading, but thought it was good for Kipley. Soon Jules was beside Kipley, and they were trying to sound things out. Reading was slow for them, but they kept at it. After some time, Sartla was running towards them. Look, what the rabbit found!" The adults looked over to Sartla. It looked like she was carrying a chalice. Sartla gave it to Moss. "What's it for?" Moss looked it over. The chalice was pure gold, and it had gems inlaid around the cup part. The stem looked delicately carved. "It looks like a fancy wine glass," Kipley said. "Do not fill the cup, but place it on the shelf." He looked at his dad. "Those were some of the words. Where's the shelf?" Kamek slightly shook his head. "I don't know. Vic and Thace, did you see a shelf for the chalice in your vision?" Vic and Thace shook her head. "No, I did not." Vic and Thace put a hand to her heart. "Suddenly, I feel like we should keep going. I know you're tired, so maybe you can ride in the wagon." Burdock didn't wait for confirmation. He just started loading the wagon. Moss said, "I feel something too." "When? How long will the lava flow? Where's the bronze door?" "But don't we need the golden key to open the door?" asked Jules. Everyone glanced at Jules and then looked at the chalice. Kamek looked at Vic and Thace. "If it's not the key, then maybe we can melt it down and make a key. Although I don't know how hot a fire we would need for such a thing." Everyone started helping Burdock load the wagon. Before they pulled away, the whole tunnel shook. Kamek glanced around and knew everyone save Sarla was suddenly frightened. Burdock got the horses going after everyone was on, and he quickened them. The tunnel narrowed again, and the torches sparsely hung along the wall. The tunnel seemed to be rumbling. There, stated Vicanthace as she pointed. There is another lever. Kamek looked back, and he saw the unicorn was rushing the spare horse to follow closely behind the wagon. Burdock needed no instructions. He quickly jumped down and pressed the lever. Once again, a wide swath of tunnel floor opened, and this time there was no ledge seen near the tunnel wall. The rumbling grew even louder, and the lava rolled in. Then Kamek saw hordes of lizard people rushing towards the lava. It seemed there were more than before. He thought of his conversation with Moss about necromancy. Could these be people he fought beside before? Or maybe the lizard people came back to their battlefield after a day or so, and those lizard people raised the dead of the battlefield. As he thought about this, his heart felt like a rock in his chest, and his throat felt strained. He and Miles had gotten off the wagon when Burdock had, and both had their swords at the ready. Kamek thought this swath of divide was wider than the one before, but the lizard people didn't hesitate to jump in and allow others to jump on top of them as they sank and burned. They were getting closer and closer to the edge. Moss let out a great yell and rushed forward. He swung his sword and sliced through several, and he jumped back. Kamek once again followed his friend's lead. The noise from the lizard people burning was almost unbearable. Kamek put his hand against Moss's arm, and he backed up. The lizard people spanned the whole width of the tunnel, and they needed to target the ones that made it across first, and not just those in the middle. As they backed up, the divide seemed to widen. Kamek could not believe their luck, but he pulled Moss back a little more. It was horrific to watch the lizard people sink down in the lava. They would throw their arms up to try to get out of the burning. Kamek didn't know how the lava stayed in the trench or divide, but he was thankful it did. Once it seemed the lizard people army was down to half, they stopped trying to jump across. Kamek's heart beat so hard he could barely breathe. Sweat poured down his face. He expected them to retreat, but instead, they sat down. The one woman came to the edge and said, "You should have let the girl pray. This time we will wait out the lava, and we will be to you and slice you to pieces as you have sliced through us." Then she went to the middle of the group and sat down. Kamek put his hand on Moss's arm and backed up. They both backed up to the wagon. Kamek noticed that Kipley and Jules were staring in horror. Basartla was down in the wagon, curled in a ball. She was crying into the rabbit's fur. The group did the only thing they could do, which was continue down the tunnel and hopefully find the bronze door, or at least another lava divide. Okay, writers, that is what I'm adding today. The word count was around 1750 words, and the total is a little over 15,000. Leave a comment on if you were in the meadow, would you have just told yourself to relax? Would you have thought you were suffering PTSD? Granted, in this setting, they wouldn't call it PTSD. They may have thought they were overreacting. So leave a comment on if you were an adult and you didn't know how to read, would you want to learn? Leave a comment on if you think the lizard people are using necromancy. Is that how they have so many lizards now in the tunnel? And is that why they don't care if they burn up in the lava because they can just raise the dead? Join me Friday for chapter 21 of Eleni's Pride, Gaining Freedom. This is book 3. Join me Tuesday for a little jargon and adding to your story with a setting. Leave a comment below on which story is your favorite so far. It could be favorite that you are writing. I'm having fun writing about the cave. I'm having fun writing about a down soldier. Whatever you are doing, if you're writing and you have a favorite one that you're writing, then leave that in the comments. Leave your favorite on the channel. Leave a favorite book you've read in the comments. Also, leave a comment on what you are currently reading. I'm still reading I'm still reading 3 books. I read like a chapter out of each night. I'm reading The Complete Fasting Guide, and that's by Dr. Jason Fung and Jimmy somebody. And I recommend this book, but I highly recommend The Diabetes Code by Jason Fung, Dr. Jason Fung, especially if you have type 2 diabetes. I just finished reading Down Wednesday and The Keys to the Kingdom series by Garth Nix. And so I'm going to start, Lord Thursday, I think is next. I'll be starting that one too. And I am still reading Walking Home by Sonia Soquette. I also recommend this book. It's, you sometimes you want an adventure, but you don't know how to fit it in your life, or you don't know if you could do it. Like, I don't know if I could walk all the way across Spain. That seems a little much, especially because she's walking in the rain and she's walking uphill and downhill, and some of it's more mountainous than others. And so I don't know that I could ever do that, but I'm really enjoying reading it. Now, don't forget to visit my website, Mykela.com, read some character bios, send your writings and chapters to writewithmykela@gmail.com, and leave comments on your favorite characters. If you hit the like and subscribe and the bell notification, then we will continue to write together. And other people will have a higher chance of finding this video and this channel, since your likes will push the video out to a greater audience. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate your participation. If you know someone who'd like this channel or would enjoy this channel, please share it with them. This is Mykela with Write with Mykela. Bye for now.